Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Bengal Tiger Podcast. I'm Matthew Brune, and joining me once again is Shea Dixon. And it is Thursday, January 9th. Perfect time for a mailbag pod. Shea, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Getting into the new year. The portal window officially closed for LSU now that the portal closed on the 28th. Matty B.
Yep.
Then they had the 5-day window after the bowl game, which was the 31st, and now that time has come and gone. So 19 total guys left. We thought the number would hit 20, so 19 end up leaving. I think maybe you look back, Matty B, and say the most surprising or maybe most impactful is probably CJ Daniels, someone who is going to Miami and was a top 3 receiver for LSU. He had eligibility left, but they knocked it out of the park with transfer additions at wide receiver. So you feel good about that. Deshaun Womack to Ole Miss and Sage Ryan. Look, Deshaun was a former 5-star, Matty B, but never started a game here. Sage Ryan will be your most accomplished guy leaving. I mean, he's got more starts and snaps played than CJ Daniels at LSU. He and Womack headed to Ole Miss, and they are on LSU's schedule next year. So we will see if we don't see them in action. But we've got the full breakdown of all 19 guys up on the site on the transfer tracker story if you want to check that out on the Bengal Tiger. It's still only $1 to sign up, be a member, and portal season continues because you can still add guys. And remember, every team now that I guess what, Matty B, was North Texas probably one of the last teams that played a bowl that wasn't in the playoffs. So like every team that's playing a bowl now are these semifinalists. Then they'll have a 5-day window. Then if there's any coaching changes like Bama did last year, you get a 30-day window. So then there's the spring. So yes, there's much more portal news to come. And we'll talk about that, I'm sure, in some of these questions today in the mailbag. But $1 to everybody that is not on the Bengal Tiger yet. Thank you for everyone who's joined. Much love. Happy New Year to everybody. Member or not, but we'd love if you came in support for $1.
Yeah. My only question to you before we start is, has your Christmas tree turned to the Mardi Gras tree yet?
It has. Yeah, that's the key, Matty B, is you don't take it down. You put it up after Thanksgiving whenever people do it. Then you don't even take it down until after Mardi Gras. You just change the decorations on it, and then it works perfectly.
Yes.
And what we do is the cut or whatever, like the mat or whatever, the circle that would go underneath your Christmas tree. We just have it kind of divided with just green, purple, gold Mardi Gras beads stacked up that we've had over time, that you kind of just make a triangle out of each of them. It goes around and it looks like a skirt. So it's perfect.
Nice. That is perfect.
Very little effort. And now Mardi Gras runs into March this year. So like, I don't have to do anything for months.
Get 5 months out of that tree.
It's gonna be great.
All right. Mailbag pod, Shea, I'll throw it to you. Where do we start here?
Okay, let's you laid down a rule. Excuse me, max 2 questions per person. This is coming from the board. Everyone, it seems, breaks it immediately. There's only one rule: 2 questions, 1 question, max of 2 per person. It gets broken right away, but no worries. But if you do want to ask questions each week, these are coming from members of the board, and again, just $1. And then the board is one of the most entertaining spots at the site.
Yes.
We spend all of our time working and chasing down scoop and writing articles and all this, but the interactions on the board, as Matty B, we were talking yesterday, he said he spent pretty much the bulk of his past month discussing basketball, men's and women's, on the board ad nauseum. So football season, you don't have a reprieve from until spring camp. So at least you've got some portal talk to get you through it, Matty B. Akron Tiger, first question. What is the Bengal Tiger contributing to the Cooley war chest? Answer, Matty B.
Everything we got. If he wants a hat, we have hats. So those have become abundant across the LSU landscape. The Bengal Tiger On3 hats. So if you see those around, we might have to give some out to Cooley.
Is this an Ed Cooley question?
This is is it not the safety?
I was in my basketball mind frame. I was like, are they just picking
Ed
out
Cooley.
there?
He just wants a basketball coach coming. I see what you're saying.
I didn't know if people were upset about the loss, the first game of the SEC or second game of the SEC.
No,
I didn't know where people were going. The Cooley war chest. Okay. That makes more sense, Matty B. I'm going to go with what you were thinking.
Yes.
Let's shift from basketball to the portal. A guy we wrote about this week, but Cooley coming from NC State. He entered last week. All four of NC State's starters entered the same day, which is a blow to NC State. They had a really good secondary. Um, but he got into town last night, which was Wednesday. Today, Thursday, is his full day. And this is Tamarcus Cooley, a safety. He was at Ole Miss earlier in the week. He's supposed to go to Missouri and Kentucky this weekend. So you kind of see that he has a feel for wanting to play in the SEC. He had originally committed to Ole Miss out of high school, then backed off that commitment. Then he signed with Maryland, but he only stayed there like a month and got out of it, went to NC State, and that's where he's been. But Matty B, he had a really good year. I don't know how much you want to put into PFF. I know it's here and there with people, but if you like it, then he was their highest graded defensive, highest graded defensive player this year, I believe, or at least the highest graded defensive back.
Yeah.
So someone who has stats, 30 tackles, 2 for a loss this past year, had a bunch of pass breakups, forced some fumbles. And Dave Doran, their head coach, had nothing but good things to say about him. You've already added one transfer DB, two, Jakeem Jackson out of Florida and Mansour Delani out of Virginia Tech. Now they're going after a third in Cooley, and Cooley is the pure safety of that group, right? Like no doubt about it. And you've got Jordan Gilbert coming back, but Sage Ryan's at Ole Miss now. Major Burns doesn't have any eligibility left. How are you flipping that safety room? Which Kylan Jackson's gone to TCU, like Jordan Allen has gone to Houston and is playing for that old Willie Fritz staff at Tulane. How do you flip that room? And that meant at least getting one safety, if not two.
Mhm.
And Cooley would just be one, right? Like they haven't added one yet. So to Akron's question, I've kind of tried to set it up there so everyone knew where we were talking. I didn't even know what we were talking about to start with. So now that we're all caught up, is there any reason to believe that they're not throwing everything at him? I mean, they know the competition's Ole Miss, who's going to also be throwing everything at a guy. And I was told about a week ago that the feel from looking around and talking to agents was Georgia, Ole Miss, and LSU were the teams that wanted safeties. And right now you're seeing them go after safeties, even more so Georgia's out of the playoffs, so they can spend time on all that. I have no reason to believe that they got to 14 commits, the large majority of which are starters, and the ones who aren't or expected to be starters, I would say. The ones who aren't are like Michael Van Buren, who is a quarterback that has double-digit starts as a true freshman in the SEC. I would have to think that they are, from everything I've heard, they are ready to throw everything they've got at a safety. And he seems to be one that, okay, he started games, he's good enough. You immediately brought him in. That tells me they want him badly.
Yeah, this is the last position where you need to go all in. And we can argue they need, let's say, an offensive tackle, or they need a whatever they still need on the board, but those aren't like desperation spots. Safety is still a desperation spot for LSU. And we went into the offseason, I think that was my like number one need. I think that was both of our number one needs in the portal. And while I think Mansour Delaney can play safety, I think he is still, you still want somebody like you said, that is a no doubt Tamarcus Cooley, quality player with experience that looks like an SEC player that is now being courted by the rest of the SEC as well. So, yeah, I look at this as a huge spot where whatever you got left in that chest, throw it at them, because you can figure out everything else in terms of needs or in terms of wants from the portal. But safety, I think, is just the lone like real need here.
And then now once again, I'm even more. He probably was asking about basketball because he says Akron did more seriously, which I would have thought safety was the most serious. Maybe he just meant the war chest part of it. But how big of a jump do you see the defense making in 2025 in the offense? And this is obviously a very early take, but it takes me back to where we were when this defensive staff got hired a year ago, and they finished like 113, right? And they fired everybody on defense. We said what, Matty B? We said cut it in half. Let's not be unrealistic. If you could get into that 60 range of total defense, that would be progress, because you were working largely with the same guys, right? Like it wasn't like they had some last year wholesale shift in who they had. I'm trying to
Yeah, I mean, they added
look
Jordan
here.
Gilbert.
Yeah,
Um,
they lost more. I mean, they lost Harold Perkins for the year, Guillory for the year, a lot of guys to the draft. Like last year, the defense they were working with maybe arguably had less pieces than the
yeah,
one that was that
I mean,
bad
3 defensive tackles.
2 years ago. They finished 61. So
Yeah.
they went from 113 to 61. That's right on the money, right?
Yeah.
Offensively, they were one. We knew they were not going to have the Jaden Daniels, Malik, Brian Thomas. Those guys went off and led the NFL in everything, right? Those three guys
Yeah, it's crazy.
as rookies. You weren't going to do that again. I said they top 25. I think you said you'd like top 15, top 20. They
Mhm.
finish in total offense 27, but that goes by yards, 431.5. You
Points, they
can
were
be
way down, I think.
you can be in the top 20 at 441. So I mean they're 10 yards out from being in the top. So I don't think that the offense took some major
The yard
fall
yeah,
backwards
like the
in
yardage,
yardage.
they were higher than the points. I think they're because they struggled to score in the red zone, so I think
Sure.
points-wise, I think they were like 40s or something like that,
Yeah.
maybe lower.
But just yardage wise, I guess gives
Yes.
you a glimpse of they didn't fall too far out in top 25, and we knew that that's about where they would be. You've pressed the reset button here. So let's say they were 25 and 60. Where do you think they go from here?
I think the offense should take a pretty substantial step forward in terms of being able to hopefully, score more touchdowns, be more explosive, which was the whole thing is they weren't explosive and they couldn't score in the red zone. So it's just a recipe for disaster. I do think they'll solve at least the first half of that with explosiveness, with playmaking, Hilton, Barron, Anderson, so on and so forth. So I have faith that and Nussmeier will be better. So I think they'll be in a better offense this coming season. Uh, how big of a jump do I think they take? Let's say from number like 25, I think they should be able to get back to like 10 range. Especially with what I think Nussmeier is going to be capable of, but we'll see how the offensive line looks. That's a massive question for me. And defensively, if we stay there at 61, I would, I'd
I'm gonna bet
hesitate.
they're even better in scoring. That was total yards. The defense actually buckled in a lot where
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
gave
like
up
the Ole
yards but
Miss
didn't
game
give
and
up
stuff like
points.
that.
Baylor.
Yeah. I think it's a step forward. I don't know if I'm not gonna say like top 20 by any means. I still think there's question marks.
They were
I'd say if they
59 in scoring D, 24
yeah,
points a game.
I think if they can get to 40, you think that's realistic? You think
Are you
that's fair?
talking defense?
Defense.
That would be giving up 23 a game. They give up 24 a game. I mean, that's a point across the whole season average. So,
I
yes, I don't think that that's wild to think.
yeah, no, I think it's definitely attainable. I will say
Being
for
top 10 were teams that were holding their opponents to 17 and under.
yeah,
Like
and
that,
they do
that's a
have a
big jump.
and they do have a challenging schedule, obviously, where with Clemson and the SEC and everything like that. But they'll have to replace like the defensive line is still going to have to. We'll see how it looks and how they play out because they are replacing Pius, Shan, Swinson, Jones, and then replacing Penn and kind of go as replacing Zy Alexander. So I don't like. I think it's gonna be better, but I'm not ready to say it's gonna be like significantly this huge jump forward defensively.
You would presume they could be improved because they've got the same coaches and they did bring in good portal players and they've got a lot of talented players coming back. Matty B, a lot of guys making that jump from freshman to sophomore year that we got to see glimpses from. So I don't think it's unrealistic to say top 30 would mean you're under 20. If you went off this past year, you're under 22 points allowed per game, and they were at 24 this year. So I think that could be expected. And that's where his Missouri defenses were, right?
Yeah.
They were top 30 defenses that gave up about 21 points a game.
Yeah, I'm hesitant again. I'm hesitant to put expectations too high, but I do think having continuity back on the defense and what a coaching staff that I believe that we both believe is excellent should be able to get them in that range of let's say 30 to 40.
They were 25 at Missouri in his final year, giving up 20.8 a game, Blake Baker. And now he's the DC at LSU going into year two after giving up about 24, like I said, this year a game. I think that they can take that step forward. So give me top 30 defense that allows by end of the year less than 22 points per game is what I'll go with. Offense, I don't think that I think where they're at, maybe they can tick up a little bit. But
Mhm.
do you want? I mean, if you're doing it by scoring offense, yes. This year, what they were 47th. They averaged 30.5. You already said it. They went down to the red zone a lot and settled for field goals, or went for it on fourth down and didn't get it, or whatever it might be.
Painful.
I can do the math in my head. Nobody wants me to do that though. But even if you 12 games, if you took a field goal or got a point, that's 3 or 4. You could easily shave off on average, let's say, almost a field goal. And if you did that, you'd be at about 28 points, or excuse me, about adding, I should say, not shaving off
Yeah.
a field goal. So you'd be at about 34, and that would be top 25. North Texas was 25th, 33.5 points per game. Penn State, Bama, Syracuse, Texas was at 34.3 points per game. Oregon, 34.9, and then they're ranked 17. These are a lot of people kind of viewed Oregon as the best offense out there. They were flirting with top 20 in actual points scored. So
Mhm.
I think top 25 would be a really nice landing spot after kind of drifting back, a bit, which we knew without Jaden Daniels and those receivers that they would do that. Now you take that step forward again.
Yeah. Well, people with
And let's
the
not skip over a year. This is Nuss's first year. Jaden, Joe, those guys' second years were all way better than their first years.
I was about to say people with the Garrett Nussmeier Heisman ticket for 2025 are going to want better
Well,
than
that's just
than
you and whomever else you're talking about.
put my entire
Yeah, I
401k
don't
on.
even pay Matty B. I just add his account, and he just bets
the
on
draft
Nuss.
the
All we're
DraftKings
more.
account.
He drives to a state where prop bets are player
Yeah,
bets
I
are
don't
only
even get
going.
prop bets. That's funny. All right, what else we got? Let's keep moving
But do you
here.
agree? You think so? I
Yeah,
think
I
that's a
think
good.
that.
I think that's one of the biggest offseason questions people have is
I
like
think the
just
offensive.
defensively and offensively, are they better or worse?
Yeah,
And I
I
think
think
both are better.
both. I think both are better. Especially from points per game perspective for the offense. I just think they're going to be able to finish drives and be more explosive. I mean, we saw in the freaking that bowl game with Hilton. Like, just if they have any speed, any type of over the top ability here, I think they're going to be more explosive. So I'm excited.
Um, but thank you, Akron Tiger. We had to work through your question there, but I did think he asked two ones that on maybe the number one portal guy they're after, and then really a big question about offense, defense this offseason, which I do have. I've been reflecting on it since the bowl game and watching these additions and knowing the high school guys and talking to some sources. I do feel they'll be better on both sides. So making a step forward, which is what you want. Um, to boot 1996. In the future, can we get someone on the pod to talk about your traditions and how that's doing? Absolutely. I've got some things lined up that, or at least talk to some people that are more than willing to come on that I think will be fun and informative there. So the answer is yes. Two, he said, who is both of y'all's favorite portal ad so far? Maddie B, you've got a story on the site from January 8th yesterday, but it broke down yours from top to bottom from 14 to 1. You did a countdown. Um, your number one was an O lineman.
I was gonna say, was that surprising to you, or do you think that was
A
surprising
little.
to people? I think Josh Thompson is the best player in this class, and I'm not sure who else it could be here. And like in my mind, I think this is a clear Miles Frazier placement at guard. I don't love him as at tackle as much as guard. I think at guard he is just um a haul. Like he can really hold down that spot. Great pass protection. He's held up solid in the run game. You look at his tape against Michigan, Ohio State. I thought he was fantastic. So yeah, I think when we looked at the interior of this offensive line, it was a massive question because of the interior pressure that was getting to Nussmeier in the back half of the season. I think Thompson immediately alleviates that at that position at guard. So I just think he's potential. Like he's going to get drafted in 2026. I think fairly high.
I would go with another O lineman in Braylon Moore, just because I think that he's a center with experience that
Hmm.
kind of erases that question altogether of
Yeah.
does DJ Chester make that jump you need at center? Or are you going to have road bumps? And I think there's an emphatic no if you're bringing in a guy with like 20 something starts, 30, whatever it is that Braylon Moore had at Virginia Tech, where very experienced, not going to get pushed around, not going to get beat all the time. And I'm not knocking DJ Chester. He was a true freshman, but you've got a lot of experience in a guy like Braylon Moore coming in. I like the Josh Thompson pick. I want to go.
Who just favorite? Yeah, like who would you?
I'd want to go Barry and Brown from
I
Kentucky.
like.
I think when
Yeah.
he had Will Levis, he was absolutely electric. When he didn't, I mean, their quarterback retired from football this year, so like that's not a advantageous spot to be in for a receiver. But still, he showed up in games, kick returns, punt return, anything he could do, he was doing. Between
Short game.
Xavier Thomas and Aaron Anderson, and now Baron Brown, you've got these weapons that I think they can figure out ways to utilize. And I think Brown is even. I don't think Brown is some Swiss Army knife that like is pegged into just that. I think you line him up at receiver and he can run routes and do whatever you need.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got talented receivers. We saw Chris Hilton turn it on in the bowl game. All of this, I think he's a really big one. I don't know why though. I'm not going to sleep on Mansour Delani here.
Yeah.
So much experience playing at Virginia Tech. Plays DB, plays corner, but could play nickel. Hopefully they get some safeties or feel good enough about that spot that they don't have to move him. And now with DJ Pickett coming in, Aiden Anding, Woodland's back, Stamps can play nickel. I just feel like, and I love Jakeem Jackson out of Florida because he was a guy that Corey loved at Florida. And he started the first 2 games and got injured and then had to work his way back. He could come and steal this title, but I'll give it to Delaney right now. I think that might be a piece. If we're sitting here saying, man, that DB room needs help, like I think he's
Yeah.
your by far the most experienced guy you added.
Yeah. I have Delaney at 5 on my rankings, so that's really high,
And you had all
honestly.
these guys in the top 7 that I just mentioned. So
Yeah, like I like obviously I have Brown at 4. He's incredible as well. So yeah, that's if someone lower, I think Jack Pyburn is someone that's gonna play a lot of snaps. I don't know if he starts or not. Maybe he does, but he's gonna play a lot of snaps because that guy has a nose for the football and he is just a tackling machine. Like he
when
really
Florida put him in the starting lineup, their whole season changed.
Yeah, incredible. 60 tackles last year. Great nose for the ball. Great toughness. Flies around sideline to sideline. Like those are things you would attribute with like a linebacker, but he was doing it as a defensive end. Like he's just everywhere. So it was really impressive. So that's one I'll throw out there as well. Okay.
Would you, and again, you have your full breakdown up. People should check it out. It's Brune's 2025 LSU transfer portal rankings so far, because there will be more, as
There'll
you
be a couple
said.
more. Yep.
Hunter Fournette said, and he steps in for Bourbon and Cheerios here. Who would you rather fight, one German Shepherd or 5 feral cats? Easy one for me here. The German Shepherds.
German
I'm not a
Shepherd,
cat
right?
person. And now you're throwing 5 feral cats at me. I'm
Yeah,
not
I'm not.
Cesar. Is it Cesar Chavez? Who is it? Not Chavez. Obviously. The dog whisperer.
I don't know. I don't know well enough.
See, oh, you kidding? Milan, Cesar Milan.
Nope.
He's like, oh, that's ridiculous. Google something, Matty
Nope.
B. Watch some TV. Watch trashy TV. I'm not saying I'm a dog whisperer, but I think I could get the German Shepherd. We could just shake hands and part ways. I'm always got treats on me. I've got multiple dogs. I've got one. Look at this golden retriever right here. This is what I would do to a German Shepherd. I would feed it so much that it had nothing to do, no
It
choice
would.
but to go to bed.
Wow. I'm looking up Caesar Milan right now. Sorry.
He's a
This
dog
is
whisperer. Get on
yeah,
Nat
no,
Geo and watch some TV.
I see this now. I've been
Have
missing
you
out
never
on
seen that? You've never seen this? Oh yes,
I've been
but all
missing
he
out on
does is just whistle at them, and then they snap out of whatever like terrible behavior they're in, and they're perfect dogs. You got to
unbelievable.
watch some episodes.
But yes, one
So
German
are you going
Shepherd.
dog?
Yeah.
You're
Oh
fighting
yeah,
one
I'm going
German
one German
Shepherd.
Shepherd.
Feral
Yeah, I don't
cats,
want to
a
fight
little
5
much.
different cats if they're attacking me at once. No.
No, and they're feral,
Yeah, and they're
so
feral.
you're good. Arizona Tiger Fanner asked you, given the 0-2 start for men's basketball and knowing what we know now about the deficiencies of the team, how many SEC games do you honestly think they win this year? And how much of those results will hurt Matt McMahon and the staff in recruiting moving forward? This is your question, Matty B, but I want to preface it by saying this. You put out the Ken Palm rankings. All 14 teams in the SEC were ranked in the top 70. So you're talking about a brutal league. Let's also not forget, didn't they win a couple of SEC games to start last year and everyone got real high and then it crashed down? Like, are we kind of experienced get those out of the way first and now they'll maybe get in some games? I don't know. You answer it. But I will say, too, that Woodward and they hired David Patrick. They're bought into Matt McMahon right
Yeah.
now. Recruiting wise, you can answer that, but I don't. For Matt McMahon, I don't think it means anything.
Yeah, no, I think they're fine. Like I said, next year is the first year where I think you'll really feel like pressure if things go south. In terms of recruiting, high school recruiting, I have no concerns with because I think they are a really like to be doing what they've done the past few years where they've gotten consistent. I think it was top 15 and top 10 the past 2 years in recruiting
Yeah,
classes, multiple 4-star guys, in the hunt for Chris Sinak before Houston comes and pays him millions of dollars. Like,
he got mattress macked.
yeah, I'm not worried about high school recruiting. My biggest question is the transfer portal recruiting, which will be realized in terms of importance because next year, like I said, is going to be probably a big year for McMahon and them, regardless. But yeah, you mentioned it. This SEC is absurd. Like this is
How many SEC games they play?
they play 18.
Okay, he wants to know how many they win. So they're 0-2, so they got 16 left.
I'd say Campom has them at 4. I think 4 is a fair number
I'll take
right
the over
now.
on that.
I'm cool with 4 or 5. I mean, this is a team that even without Reed, beat Florida State. I
They're
would
down 2 starters right now,
Yes,
correct?
yes, like Tyrell Ward and Jalen Reed. Without them, this would be very different conversation. Like we'd be talking. I legitimately think with them we'd be talking about a potential tournament team, because in the SEC if you just go like 8 and 10, you're in the tournament. But without them, like the offense is limited. They struggle, but we'll see how it goes. Hopefully they can. Like Arkansas at home on January 14th, I think is a big, big game. Like that's winnable. So we'll see if they can get that one done and then kind of build from there.
A Jalen Reed injury is out of Matt McMahon's control. Like that was a brutal, brutal blow to the team, no doubt about it. But hey, look, buckle in. We'll see. I'll be in the PMAC. Matty B's there every game, men and women. Traveling to some games, Matty B is. So we'll have you
All
guys
right.
covered on the Bengal Tiger. I'll take the over on Ken Palm there with the 4 wins out of 16 games remaining. Give me the over. Um, and I should add too, and you're the basketball guru. People are loving Jalen Courtney, former player at LSU, but he
He's
seems to
awesome.
be a bright young guy on the recruiting
Yes.
trail. That, in addition to David Patrick and these other staff members, that recruiting wise, as you said, you've had bad seasons and you've signed top 10 and 15 classes. Like that's tough to do.
Yeah. And the result of the injuries and the results, like they're having to play a lot of young players. You look at Jalen Reed and Tyrell Ward; those are 2 guys they recruited when they got here, and they developed them over 3 years. So, like, we always hear, fans and everybody be like, "Oh, recruit high school and develop your players. Don't just go get 1-year rentals." They've done that, and they've tried to do that. The problem is when Reed and Ward aren't on the team anymore, and you've recruited, around them basically. Now you're out there like, okay, we got to play like 4 freshmen, and it's just hard.
The next question is legal text tiger. I agree with you too on what you said. Legal text tiger. Anything on the tight end coaching front? Slade Nagel left, and he is now the OC at Houston. Lincoln back up with Willie Fritz after they were at Tulane together. I've not heard anything. I'll make some calls. AFCA, the coaches convention, is coming up, and that's a spot where often teams will go and get a feel for guys who are looking around or out there. Obviously, agents are calling aplenty, saying, "Hey, we've got a guy for the job." So with they've already signed tight ends like JD LaFleur, Bauer Sharp, Trades Green's coming back. Like no one's going
Yeah.
pro. Like there isn't any big urgency for me to have to get that hire done like today. So I think that's one they can take their time with and seemingly have been. But legal text, I'll make some calls and then I'll make a post on the board about that. Misled Alarm 92. Why won't she text me back, Maddie B? Any advice there? My guess is going to be we're spending too much time online.
I was gonna say, get off the board.
Too much time online.
Misled alarm. Now he did. Misled alarm did take that break, so I don't know what he was doing
That
and
is
like took
true.
like a month off. So I don't know what you did wrong in that month.
He
Misled.
relapsed and he got back on the board,
Yeah,
and now she's
you're
not
back.
texting.
You
But he did want to know: do we think any freshmen outside of Pickett will play? Give me one that stands out maybe to you that you say, "Hey, that guy's going to come in here and play."
there's a couple. There's a couple. I think. Well, Harlan Berry is the first one because I think he
Yep.
immediately could jump into the 2 deep, and that's maybe Caleb Jackson has a kind of revelation this offseason, but I'm putting my money on Harlan Berry at least being in the rotation and getting somewhere somewhere in the range of like what 15 to 20 like receptions alone. Like I could see them just throwing like some of those swing passes to Durham. I could see going to Barry. Like I think Barry just as a route runner is really polished. So that's the first one I would say. Then you go what
5-star number one
linebacker?
running back in the country. So
Then you go what linebacker like Charles Ross
I
or
don't know. I think the linebackers are set, which is why they haven't taken any in the portal. I almost feel like, and now you've got Perkins coming back who can play some star for you, which is I think what he's going to do,
yeah.
or linebacker. But I will go after Pickett. I think Aiden Anning's a very good player. He could get his feet wet, similar to a PJ Woodland. I think that Buddy Mathis is the DT I love the most, so maybe he could have that
And DTs rotate a lot. So,
McKinley, Ahmad Bro
yeah,
type role of like 10
yeah,
snaps, here and there a game, and that's a lot for a freshman. You kind of get your feet wet that way. I'll throw JT Lindsay into your dialogue of running back because I think
yeah.
Frank has proven over time, Wilson, that he will play freshman running backs if they're ready. We saw that with Caden Durham this year. We saw it with Caleb Jackson the year prior. I think that JT Lindsay complements Caden Durham and Harlem Berry to a point where he gets himself some early playing time. So
Mm,
I'll also go running back so that we don't both pick Harlem. And then I'll kind
well,
of throw in that I do think those young DTs, like a guy like Buddy Mathis, could see a role like Don McKinley and them did, and Bro.
yeah, and defensive tackle and running back are probably the two spots freshmen are most capable of stepping into the rotation. Like not from just from a term of, in terms of that most of the time they rotate those guys. Like usually running back will rotate 2 to 3 guys in there and maybe sprinkle in another one. And then defensive tackle, we know how much they rotate. So we'll see about like I didn't even
Let's
mention
throw
I'm
Curious Kern in here.
throw Kern in there, but then also JD LaFleur if they don't get another tight end.
No doubt about that.
LaFleur actually is someone I should have mentioned
And he's
probably
a big
off
bodied
rip.
kid already, so he can get
Yeah.
out there and block.
Yeah. So LaFleur at this moment, LaFleur is their best blocking tight end. We'll see if that changes, but I like LaFleur's floor
That's a
as
good pick.
his what do
And
you think
then
of?
Curious Kern, I know that, look, they
Yeah.
added a guard who was the number one ranked transfer on your list, but they still need another guard. I know
Yeah.
they've got guys, but I don't think they take another transfer guard. So I think Kern comes in and has a chance to battle the returning
It's
guys, and
competition. Yeah,
and
it's
we'll see where it's at.
between what Chester, Mabanga, Kern, um,
Bordelon, we
Borderline.
saw
Oh,
we
Cohen
saw in the bowl game.
Eccles.
Cohen Eccles play very well at right
Yeah,
guard.
that's probably the most competitive spot is that other guard spot right now. Like, on January 9th, just looking out at like spring and the summer.
Nick Tay asked 225, do y'all think we add another DT? I know Bro and Dom have a lot of promise, but it would be nice to add an experienced dude with Jacobian coming off an injury. I'm with him. I think they would if it popped up and if it was like a guy that made sense. But at the same time, I think that Bro, McKinley, those guys can take that next step. And then Buddy Mathis can play that role they did this year. And you see where Guillory's at. But I'd have to look at the whole depth chart at DT and who might be a nose versus just a tackle. But Paez is gone, obviously. Suggs is gone.
They added two. Well, the only noses that they added, I'd say, are Sadir Mitchell from Texas, and then
Yeah.
Zion Williams, the freshman, who is also huge.
And Buddy Mathis is a big kid. I think he could play either. I don't know. I don't know if it doesn't seem they've made DT a massive priority spot in the portal, and they've gone hard in the portal. So I think that they almost feel, or Bo Davis must feel like he's in a good spot with these guys.
Yeah. Also, I think Dylan Battle's more of a nose than a
Yeah.
3 tech, just off my evaluation of him. Sorry.
But yeah, I don't know. And he's right. Jacobian is coming off an injury, but by then you'd hope he's good. But
Yeah.
we'll see. I think this might be something that by the time they get to spring ball, they look at and look, I'm not trying to get back into a spring portal window DT discussion here, but they don't seem to have any. They had other positions that were clearly needs to them that they hit in the portal, and we didn't see DTs just like flocking through here on visits. So
Yeah.
I think that they have a good feel for it and that they may have liked what they have. So
Yeah.
one to keep an eye on. LSU Lawyer 24
You want
rapid
to hit a?
fire.
Do you want to hit an ad read before?
Yeah, we'll get one right after this.
All right.
He said rapid fire. We'll take it. How many more do we take out of the portal? We talk about Cooley at safety being on campus. They want 2 safeties. But I
Over
do
under
know they
over
would
under 2.5 total.
it would just depend. Are we going the whole spring, like all the way to the
No,
I'll
no,
go
no, just
over.
no, before the spring. So in this
Um,
before the spring.
I'll go under. I'll take 2.
Okay, 2.
But I think the needs are safety, tackle, and tight
Tight end?
end.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe in that order.
Yeah, I agree.
Can you pull off more than 2 in the next month? I don't know, but
Yeah.
I'll set it at 2. Multiples. They want 2 safeties, a tackle, a tight end. That's your list, right? That's your wish list going into the new year.
Yeah.
That's about Hunt baseball content. We'll get all that stuff rolling. Lawyer. We've also got some other baseball stuff kind of in the works that we're trying to iron out. And then he asked, "Is Matt McMahon the head coach of basketball in 3 years?"
It's a long
That's a
time.
long-term question, Matty
A
B.
long time.
Impossible to answer. But as you just noted, next year is when you start to pay attention to that, right? And
Yeah.
he got like an 8-year contract.
Yeah, I think it was 7-year contract because, again, of how bad of a situation LSU was in.
They had no
No,
scholarship. They had nobody on scholarship on the team.
yeah, nobody wanted to come here, so it was like, all right, we have to, give somebody a 7-year contract to come be the head coach. So there was ample insurance that he would have time to turn this thing around. His top players get hurt year 3. We'll see what next year looks like.
Ad read real quick, and it's my perfect franchise. We talk about him every week, but Andy Luedecke is running it back here in 2025. That sounds odd to say out loud, but we are in 2025. And many of you are familiar by now with what he does. He's a franchise consultant. He owns My Perfect Franchise, which you can find at myperfectfranchise.net. You can give him a call, 404 973 9901. Or you can email him, Andy at myperfectfranchise.net. As a consultant, he does a bit of it all. I was talking with him recently, and he said he's done everything from dealing with kids who are still in college and looking at what to do afterwards to kids who had left and gone to trade school and done some things and were looking to kind of move into a more permanent career by taking this route of going through a franchise, becoming a franchisee, and to people who were retired from jobs they had done, for 40 years and said, "Hey, look, I'm bored at the house. I have this passion. This is what I want to do." And as a consultant, he said, "Look, any skill set, any age, financial requirement, how much time you have in your day to commit to it, there's no stupid questions." Basically, he's dealt with every single level of it, and because of the link up he has with On3 and the Bengal Tiger, if you call him, if you email him, any of that, it's free to chat about. You tell him where you're at, and he can kind of push you into the right direction and give you a number of kind of different avenues to look at with his advice. So give Andy a shout, 404 973 9901, or an email, Andy, ANDY, at myperfectfranchise.net. So shout out to Andy. Happy New Year to him and the gang over there as we continue to roll forward here with the Bengal Tiger Mailbag Pod, sponsored by My Perfect Franchise.
Yes,
And
sir.
it's hybrid theory. He says, who leads the team in sacks next year, 2025? It was Swinson this year.
Patrick Payton.
I knew you were going to say that. All right.
Patrick
So
Payton.
he's your Florida State transfer, elite 2 years ago, fell back this year. What makes you think that he's that guy next year? And what are you looking at? What are you saying? Like 8 sacks? Is
Yeah,
that a big
something like
number?
that. Something like that. I mean, it's either way. It's either him, Rutherford, Butler, Perkins. Oh, Perkins probably does it actually. Yeah, something like that. So it could be, Perkins or one of them. But yeah, somewhere in that 8 range. I just think I'm not sure how to evaluate this past year because honestly, he had some like moments and like flashes where I was like, okay, he's still there. He can still do this. It was just like Florida State around him was eroding and
Yeah.
like
They
and
were
not a
terrible. They
terrible
won one game
situation.
or
So
whatever.
so like I choose to believe that on a 13-0 team, he was an extremely productive player. And in this defense, he should be able to repeat that, or at least at the very least be like, even if he's not Braden Swinson level, who was winning, SEC Player of the Weeks repeatedly, I think he should be Maybe a little bit toned down version of that, but still very good.
And nobody was talking about Braden Swinson as an 8.5 sack guy when LSU took him out of the portal.
Yeah, you
Nobody.
you were the only one that had him in the top 4 this year.
Well, he had already been on the team for a year at
Yes.
that point. I just knew what he could do as a backup and knew but when they took him 2 years ago, nobody was saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is a guy who's going to be like a total game changer," and he did. I'm going to go with Harold Perkins. I think that if he plays star, or at least in a rushing situation more often than not, because you
Yeah.
have weeks and weeks and weeks, 3 of them. At linebacker, Keys has been great at linebacker with Penn now moving on. And then you've got those other guys, Tylen Singleton, all those guys. Um, I'll go. I think that allows Blake Baker to move Perkins into a role where he can just get after the passer. So I'll give him the edge at linebacker or star or whatever over whomever might be your starter at D end.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. It could be Patrick Payton. Who leads the team in receiving yards, and is it over or under 1,000? This is a great question because I think you could give about 4 answers, maybe more, and make a good case for it. Like I think this question is totally open ended and could be one of a number of guys.
Yeah, this is
For
rolling. This
for
is throwing
perspective,
darts.
only 2 guys went over 500 yards at receiver this year for LSU. It was Anderson and Lacey. They both were in the 800s and they had 5 9 TDs, but neither of them eclipsed 1,000.
Which is
So
insane. I wrote it this morning. Nussmeier was the only quarterback of the top 6 in yards in the country that did not have 1,000-yard receiver. And
spreading it around.
yeah, so spreading it around. This is, like you said, I think this is throwing darts, honestly, because I could be convinced for like 4 different players. I think 4, no, 4, 5, 5, 4, whatever. I mean, I'll
Here's one
throw.
thing.
Go ahead. Who do you got?
I'll say this before we start. I do think that something you brought up earlier in the pod will play into this answer of if somebody hits 1,000 or not. Well, the first one being they've got a lot of receivers, and if they spread it around, it's tough for someone to hit 1,000. But as you said earlier, Harlan Berry is going to get balls out of the backfield. Caden Durham did that this year. Caden Durham caught 28 passes for over 250 yards. That's taking away from what wide receivers would do. I also think they'll run the ball more successfully. That takes away from what the wide receivers are doing. You've lost Mason Taylor, but you've got Trades Green. He takes away from what wide receivers are doing. I don't think anyone's hit 1,000 because I just think that the ball's going to get spread around a lot.
And Nussmeier is, well, maybe it was forced, but like Nussmeier is definitely the type of quarterback that does not just throw to one guy. Like even before this year, like he was never just like, oh, I'm only throwing to Brian Thomas or something like, or Malik Neighbors, or something like that. Like clearly, if you have those guys, then yes, but I'm not sure. So maybe if one of these guys steps up and is that next great receiver at LSU, like if it's Anderson, Brown, Hilton, whoever, then maybe they could emerge as that. But I'm with you in terms of on paper right now. I don't think there's like much separation between the top 4 or 5 receivers on this team, and then you add Trades Green in the running backs. I think it's too spread out at this moment, so I cannot predict someone to go over 1,000 yards. So that's the second half of the question where we agree on that. Now the first half of the question is who leads in receiving yards. If I'm throwing a dart, go ahead. Who do you got?
I think that my 2 answers are going to be ones people won't pick.
I mean, I'm just gonna. I think Nick Anderson.
That was my pick. I think it might be Nick Anderson.
I
Nick
think Nick
Anderson on
Anderson is
38
real.
catches went for 810
I think
years
Nick
ago.
Anderson is real. Like I think if you watch his 2023 season, like it's not like so I had someone on the board ask me like he's 6'4", but he's not making a ton of contested catches. And I went back and I replied, I said, CJ Daniels made a lot of contested catches at Liberty, and then he comes to LSU, and it turns out he's not super explosive. He doesn't create a ton of separation. He's a good receiver, and Nick Anderson is fast. Like I think,
Compare those two.
yeah,
Compare
Nick
those two right
Anderson
there.
is a better route
CJ
runner.
Daniels had 42 catches for 480 and no touchdowns this year.
Yeah.
Nick Anderson was hurt this year. The year prior at OU, he had, and again, 42 catches, 480, no touchdowns for CJ Daniels. And you always felt there was that little bit like he'd make the play and then it was that
Yeah.
do you then what do you do in space? What do you do yards after the catch? And it was
Yeah.
always felt like, oh man, he's always so close to breaking that tackle or keeping his feet. Nick Anderson had 4 fewer catches, went for 800 yards, and scored 10 touchdowns at OU 2 years ago. This is a yards after the catch monster. Like Barry Brown wasn't even doing that at Kentucky. He was his most productive year with Levis, 50 catches for 628 yards and 4 touchdowns. And they
Mhm.
weren't even using him in the run game at that point. They did the following year. But I think the answer is Nick Anderson. If it's not, then it's probably Aaron Anderson.
Yeah, Aaron Anderson's a good shout as
Chris
well.
Hilton.
Chris Hilton's a fine shout as well, especially in terms of yardage, which
That if we're talking yardage, Chris Hilton 243. I mean, that was like in 2 games, basically. Like Chris Hilton, if he's healthy all year, could get to a lot of yards in a hurry if he's putting up 110 every other week.
yeah. Yeah, Nick Anderson, I think is just a polished route runner. Like he legitimately creates separation. And he did it obviously at Oklahoma, which is a higher level than what CJ Daniels did it at Liberty. I believe in him to regain that and come out and looking like a number one receiver for LSU. Now, there's a lot of guys that are going to be potential number one receivers here, so we'll see how it sorts itself out. But I think Nick Anderson is my early guess for who leads the team in receiving.
Be interesting debate. And look, don't count out Destin Payson or Hill or whatever he's going by now, Destin Hill. I'm telling you, I think he's going to shock some people. He's going to be out there. So be ready for it. Let's see what happens. Legal Text Tiger, favorite moment from 2024, offense and defense. I got my offense one.
Offense is Garrett Nussmeier's throw to Aaron Anderson to tie the game against Ole Miss on 4th down.
Oh man, okay. I'll take the one that then I'll do overtime. The Kyron Lacey, give me the ball right now, touchdown walk off.
Those were incredible. I like the Anderson play because it was 4th down, and obviously that was the game. And I didn't think it was like you look at the play, he really wasn't that open. Like
The
he
all
kind of
22 of that throw is insane.
threw it to a spot kind of, and Anderson kind of ran under. It was absurd. Because you lose the game if you don't convert that. It was just incredible. That's the one for me. But yes, the touchdown right after was awesome too. So that's the one on offense. Defensively, the first thing I thought of was Weeks' strip sack for a touchdown,
Yep.
where he
Chugged the beer and then he
shotgun
spun the football
the
perfectly.
football afterwards. That's the first thing I thought of. Is that the right answer?
I think it's got to be. That was the week. It felt like the moment Weeks emerged, right? Like that was the here he is
It always happens
coming
against
to the party.
Arkansas. LSU's young linebackers always have their fun against
That's right.
Arkansas.
I think
Uh,
that's the answer.
that's probably the one. Yeah, that was a pretty nasty play where he just took him down to go got the ball. Yeah, incredible.
Um, and honestly, it was on defense technically when Weeks got carted off, and you saw the whole team come out there.
Yeah,
I think it showed how much of a leader he truly is to this team. Both offense, defense, special, like everybody was out there, and I think it speaks to what Wood is as a football player. Remember, he was the one that said, "How can y'all get excited for a bowl game if it's not a playoff game or one for a national championship?" And he said, "It's football. It's a chance to play one more game." And he goes out there and gets injured for the year and has to get carted off, but pumps up the crowd leaving. So I think he's got a bright future. But we'll go Weeks chugging it, spinning it, and then the Ole Miss game for offense. Good
yeah.
questions though. Maximus 7918 with Harlem being an early enrollee. How early do you see him getting on the field, and what impact can he make as a freshman? We touched on this. I think
Yeah.
he's going to. I firmly believe he can grab the number 2 spot.
Yes, I agree. I think now
If you want to put numbers on a running back room, I think his role will be what it will be.
and I think the question for a lot of people is the step up in competition, which I think is fair. But I think from a receiver perspective, he's already elite, and then you just have to get the running aspect. Where I don't know. I've watched him in camp the last 3 years, and I've watched other really good running backs in camp the last 3 years.
He's
They don't
different.
move. They don't
No, they
move
don't.
like him. Like, it's just different. So yeah, it might take him a little bit to get acclimated to the speed of things, but that's why he's an early enrollee. That's why, he'll have some games to get his legs under him and kind of feel it out, the speed of the game. But once that happens, I think it's just get ready.
And Caden Durham got 140 touches this year carrying the football. And
Yeah.
then he caught the ball 28 times, targeted probably more than that. And Harlem's a far better pass catcher than that. So I think a lot of playing time, honestly, because
When
Josh Williams isn't here anymore. So now
Yeah.
it's just Caden Durham and these guys.
Yeah. Yeah. It wouldn't even surprise me if they put him in the slot for like just to change it up and motion him around and move him around and stuff like that. He is incredible. So
Lynn B33, do you think LSU will ever invest in the men's basketball the way the rest of the SEC has?
I think it's definitely possible. It wouldn't shock me at this point, but it's definitely going to take some catching up because of what Alabama, Auburn, Arkansas. I mean, that's before you even get to Kentucky, but like Kentucky, Texas, so on. They're paying a lot of money to be
Well,
good at
this is NIL
basketball.
related, so
Yes,
you need more money. But
NIL related, and then
I think there's
we'll
got to be
see.
a built-in advantage here that you've got Kim Mulkey and the women and have
Mm.
this push for a new stadium and a new
That's what I'm
PMAC
hoping
and
for
all
as
of this.
well.
Like if this all comes down the line, like that helps with
Yes.
recruiting, right?
Yeah, so that's the next part of it is, can you get an arena that is competitive with these other ones that are being
Auburn's, all these
built?
new ones that are
Auburn's
really
awesome, yeah.
nice.
But still, I think they can. I don't know the answer because um, at this point, I don't know. We haven't really seen it. We haven't seen it in comparison to like 7 years ago. I'd say LSU was fairly on pace, but the rest of the SEC in the past 2 years has decided, no, we're tired of being bad at basketball. Like, we actually really want to be good at this, and so they've all jacked up their spending like significantly, and now it's on LSU to do it.
Again, I'll take the over 4 wins on that Ken Palm. Give it to me. I'm bought in. I'm booting up, Matty B.
Boot
I'll
up.
be there. Boot up. But yes, I think the news, like they already did the nice facilities added on like to the PMAC. But I think obviously if you take it to a next level with a new arena that grabs new eyes in the NIL era and everything that's coming with
Yes.
ahead with it, rev share and everything else. Phelps 4824, do you think we get to Marcus Cooley at safety? And if not, who do we get? He is the number one target right now. So they don't want to let him leave campus without figuring out exactly what he's looking for and trying to meet that. So that's target number one. From there, everybody else is a rung below that. So I think it all starts right there. And until I hear differently, they need at least one. He's the guy they're going after. Like I said, there'll be others that'll visit, but priority number one is Cooley. I don't know. If they get him, I do know that him leaving Ole Miss and then showing up at LSU without already shutting it down is a good thing because he was committed to Ole Miss out of high school, and Ole Miss is one of the programs that has been very good at getting a guy to visit and then shut it down. And LSU's done that too. So he made it to campus. That's big news. If we see him, we could very well see him shut it down and not make the other SEC visits and go to LSU. So a big couple of days ahead, and we'll keep you updated the whole way on the Tamarcus Cooley stretch. NC State safety that's visiting LSU. RPM Jay said, when does Trades Green join the basketball team? Is he going to do that, Matty B, or is he
He
kind of just
is.
hanging around?
He is, but we don't have a firm timeline on that. We've talked to McMahon about that, and the focus is so far like football is number one, and then it's like, at way down, it's like, all right, let's get on the basketball court. It's football first and foremost. He wants to make sure that Trades is good on that front, and then he can come sit on the bench for basketball games.
I don't think anyone's expecting him to step in and have some big impact on the team,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I've been asked multiple times if Trades can help this team, and I'm just telling y'all he's not gonna get on the court.
And a lot of people would like to see him then focus on football because
Yes.
he could be
Matt McMahon wants him to
a
focus on
game.
football.
Remember Zachary in high school when he moved to Zachary, that the coaches there were saying, look, even the basketball coaches are saying, you got a spot, but like As we saw in the bowl game, you could be a day one pick in football. Like your
Yeah, like
life
this
could
is
change forever with
yeah.
football.
So
I think he loves basketball
he
though. That's
does.
his passion.
He does for sure. So yeah, he can join the team whenever they set it up, but don't expect him to like go out there and be getting 15 minutes a game.
Um, Then he asked, knows it's early, but what LSU football game should we mark on the calendar next season? This is an easy answer. Clemson, week one.
Clemson is
Klubnik's back, Nussmeier's back, and you've not won a week one game in ages, not in the Brian Kelly era. So starting the season 1-0 and not 0-1 is the easiest question for me to answer in this mailbag. It's at Clemson.
it's by far. If you win that, like the winner of that game will immediately jump into like the top 3 or 4 in the rankings.
And then Clemson being in the ACC, if they win that game, they can
They're
cruise
set,
to the
absolutely
championship
set. And I
game.
honestly, LSU at that point, if they win that game, like you are in a position to where if you go 9-3, even with that win, like resume wise, you're going to be above a lot of teams. Like let's say an Ole Miss who doesn't. I don't know who Ole
Yeah.
Miss plays next year, but like in theory, you're going to have that win that other teams don't. So it's going to be huge.
The next question was from Tiger Fan 11. He said, "What's going on with the young safeties? They do not seem to any more. I think he said B, meant to say B. They do not seem to be any more dynamic now than they were before the year started. Is it coaching, lack of talent? Well, I think we've got to only be talking about what. Are we only talking about Deshaun Spears? There's nobody.
Toviano, I
He's not a
assume.
young safety though.
Yeah, I mean, not
He just
anymore.
got moved to safety.
Just got moved to safety. No, you're right.
I mean, Joel
Kyler
Rogers
Jackson's
didn't play a
gone.
ton. Kylan Jackson's gone. Jordan Allen's gone. So I guess is this just a Deshaun Spears conversation? If it is,
Uh,
I'll say he was a true
I,
freshman that remember when Charles Power was on the board repeatedly when people asked why is he not like the number one safety, number two safety in the country? He's leading Denham Springs in picks, all these things. And he said, I need to see a more willing tackler. He's not a very willing tackler at this stage. We saw it when he was out there, Matty B. He's young and
mhm.
tackling is the area he has to grow in.
Yeah.
To say that there wasn't growth from start to finish would probably not be true because I'm certain that he did have growth. But
Yeah.
the reality remains it's not, I don't think it's coaching. They did the same thing they did the year prior. They just played the guys who were the veterans. Like they knew they weren't going to be that great. So just play the three guys that have started 30 something games each.
Yeah, and I do think there's some pressure on them in terms of a defense and stuff to be. But again, this was their first year taking in this group and trying to figure them out. But ultimately, the safety position just has to be better. It's just whatever it is. If it's young guys, if it's transfers, I do
Well,
not
and
care at this point. You
Jordan
have
Allen
to just go.
started 2 games. Deshaun Spears was playing a lot at the start. It's not like they didn't ever say, like, let's see what these guys are
Yeah,
about. It just reverted back to
yeah,
Gilbert Sage and
and
Major.
again, whatever the answer is, I don't care at this point. They got to figure it out. From Brian Kelly down, the safety play has to be better from what it was the last 2 years. And I know they weren't here 2 years ago, but the safety play just has not been good enough. So that's kind of the frustrating part here is transfers, freshmen. I don't care. Go get some safeties.
BG23, how soon is Tommy Reese joining the staff? I don't know if Tommy Reese is joining the staff unless he's coaching tight ends. Joe Sloan's on the road recruiting right now. So any talk of that, like they didn't get home from the bowl game like the year prior and Brian Kelly walk in and fire everybody on offense. Like they're looking for a tight ends coach and I've not heard any buzz on anything else. So we'll see ultimately what happens, but I don't think there's going to be any changes. And then he asked, how does Weston Davis look? Young. I mean, he's young, true freshman,
Mm-hmm.
multi-sport kid who's now focused only on football. He didn't transfer. That should tell you a lot right there. And he's battling for the right tackle job. And Josh Thompson told me when we talked on the phone, I said, are they going to try to play you at tackle? And he said, only in emergency. They want me at guard. So that right tackle job, yeah, they're still looking in the portal at guys, but Weston is very much in that competition. So I think he's probably looked like a freshman, and Brad Davis bringing him along and him not transferring is a good thing. You get another offseason to see how far that year one to year two jump, which is huge for most kids, especially on the O line, how that goes for Weston, a former 5-star. Run Hamburger said, assuming we get at least one safety in the portal, what positions do you see as the biggest strength and weakness for 25? I'm still probably at DB being the weakness and the passing game being the strength. I guess you could just say I could just say the quarterback, but
Yeah.
I think they have some talented receivers, so I can just say the passing game.
Positions do you think will be the strength?
Okay, then I'll go quarterback and
No,
safety.
no, yeah, no, I'm sorry, I'm rereading it now. Yeah, quarterback, biggest strength. Safety is still a question. Even if you get somebody, we'll see how they play out. But yeah, secondary, I think in general is going to be it's just gonna be different. We're gonna have to see them develop. We'll have to see how they do in the fall. We'll see how ready all these guys are, and kind of go from there. So, yeah, that's
Cairo Tiger said it feels like 2025 setting up for a run at the Natty. All the chips are in for competing this year, it seems. And I'll say that getting Garrett Nussmeier back, massive. But Brian Kelly said they'd be aggressive in the portal, and with 14 guys and counting, Matty B, they're stacking up starter types. These aren't backups, or these aren't guys who are never going to play and then they transfer again next year. I do feel like they're trying to make a run, at least to the playoffs, right? I mean, that's the goal. But he said, barring whatever pieces are added, what are the odds of that group playoffs, winning an SEC, winning a title? Is it far fetched? How? I know we won't put gambling odds on this, but
so. I mean,
I think you have to just say, can they get to 10 wins? Does that
from
get 10 wins get you in the
10
playoffs?
10 wins gets you in. As we've seen with Tennessee this past year, 10 wins
Yes.
gets you in. 10 wins, and they didn't play in that. Honestly, their resume was not fantastic, Tennessee's, but they get
No.
in. I think what they were the 9 seed, played Ohio State on the road. So, that's oh no, they were home. Were they home for that game? Am I misremembering? Whoever it was, the 8-9 game. They were played in the 8-9 game. No, they
No.
were the 9. They were the 9. They
No.
played at Ohio State.
Yes, they
Sorry.
played Ohio State.
But yeah, 10 wins gets you in. Like I said, if you beat Clemson
Let's
and go
say
9
this.
and 3,
That's it. If you beat
you're in.
Clemson, I think playoff feels like
Your
the
odds
floor.
go
Yeah,
way
the
up,
floor.
way up.
Let's move back for a second. Are you giving them better than a 50% shot of making the playoffs?
Oh, yes.
I think this
Slightly.
year, going
Yes.
into the year, ESPN's FPI had it at like 23%.
Which they were right about. Good for them. Yeah, I think this year it's going to be close to 50%. I think
I,
50% is a good
I'll go over. I do think they have a better shot at making the playoffs than not.
Yeah, I'm good with
Because I
that.
don't think Bama's going to be all that great. I don't like Ole Miss had their dark experience, like all of that. You know what I mean? Like they went all in this past year. Do they have to do that
Mhm.
again? And even then, they got beat by LSU and other teams.
Yeah. Like Florida might be a little like Florida,
Yeah,
I thought this year was I told people before the year they thought they were going to be good, and they were good, especially when LSU played them with
my
Lagway.
favorite part is after the game when you say Lagway is going to be a handful. I said, no, he just was a handful for
Well,
four
I
quarter. He
tried
just beat them with one leg.
I tried telling people before the year that Florida was going to be a handful. I picked LSU to lose that game, and I got roasted on the board for 48 hours. That I don't bring it up though. I don't bring it up.
No,
I
no,
don't bring it
no,
up.
but you did.
You're right. Am
But
I?
yeah, on
I,
one leg.
I did.
I'll put it above 50% that they make
Yeah.
the playoffs. Win the
Um.
SEC. I don't really care. Like I know
Yeah.
that winning the SEC sounds great, but also winning the SEC, getting to that game, playing another game, and losing it is
Yeah.
less advantageous than just winning 10 games and getting in like Tennessee did.
No, it is definitely. It's definitely like superfluous. It's not necessary. Um. But winning the SEC, so you have to make the championship game, then win that game. I mean, I don't know, 15%, 10%, somewhere around there, 10%, 15%, somewhere in that range. Like there's probably a lot of teams you could put in that range. So yeah, something like that. And then winning the
Yeah,
national
Texas
title.
didn't have a bye, right? No, they played in the first
No,
round.
so Texas has
So they
played.
went, yeah, they were one loss, went to the SEC championship, lost the game, and have now had to play each round of
This
the
is game
playoffs.
15 for them.
Yeah, Tennessee didn't go, got in, and also
Lost. Yeah.
got to the playoffs. So like
And that's the
maybe
thing
that's the
with,
difference between hosting and not
well,
hosting.
it's so in this format, it's the difference. If you win it, obviously you get a bye. But I
If you
think
get there and lose, you can host.
yeah, at this point, I think the NCAA, it's been talked about that they're looking to get rid of the 4 automatic buys, and if that's the case, then I mean, winning the conference really doesn't matter. Like if you go 11-1 and you lose the conference championship game, you might still get a bye. But at the very least, you'll host. So regardless, it's not super necessary, but I'd say about 10 to 15%. Winning a national title. Oh God, dude, I can't even think that far ahead. Because then you have to consider how good like Ohio State, Oregon, all these other teams are going to be. I mean, I don't know. Probably if we assume they're a top 20 team, 4%, something like that. 1 out of 25, something, 4 or 5% chance of winning the title. Like we're just saying they're a top 20 team going into the year, top 15 team going into the year, like something like that. So that's a hard number to place.
Yeah, that one's tough for me. Oh boy, yeah, I don't know. I'll just say I think that they'll. Here's my prediction: they'll make the playoffs.
There we
I
go.
have
That's
no clue what happens from there,
and
but
honestly,
I think they'll make the playoffs.
Ohio State is the favorite to win the title right now, and they made it as an 8 seed after losing to Michigan and didn't play in the conference championship. So again, it's just about getting in at this point. It's just about getting in and then playing good football.
What's been we got 3 left. Go Tigers 5280 said, "What's the most surprising addition for y'all so far in the portal?" I liked that they went out and got Grant Chadwick at punter.
Yeah, that was cool. That was
Middle
great.
Tennessee State, amazing freshman punter. It didn't get overlooked that they didn't have that position figured out this year, and they went out there and got someone who's very proven commodity.
Well, I'll say the most surprising is Michael Van Buren to me because
There you go.
that is a big time pull from Mississippi State. Like to get a starter in the SEC as a true freshman to come and sit for a
And no,
year
he's
and
not
then
starting.
and know he's not starting and then be like, all right, look, pitch them the full idea of being like, hey, you're gonna have 3 years of eligibility if you redshirt this year, moving forward, all this stuff. Like that is awesome. That's a
In the
better get than I
portal
thought.
age, that's as rare as Nuss staying 4 years to start a football, to become the starter.
I don't think I'm not sure LSU fans have processed what Nussmeier has done. He has stayed through multiple coaches, multiple quarterbacks being recruited in the portal ahead of him. He has elected to come back and forego the draft, all this stuff to go 5 years of being an LSU Tiger. Like
He loves it. He's
that's
about it.
a different level of like committed to the program. I don't know if people fully understand just how crazy that is.
And it had his dad basically not said, "You're not playing in that Texas Bowl," with John Trey Kirkland got to start at
Yeah.
quarterback, we wouldn't be having this discussion because he'd be in the NFL draft. He'd have no
Yeah.
choice. That would have been it for him.
Yeah.
Now he's got a whole nother year, which may lead LSU to a playoff and a chance at a national championship because you have one of the most experienced quarterbacks out there. I mean, him and Drew Aller. I don't know if Quinn Ewers really does stay, and then Aller really does stay as well. Penn State, Texas. Those will be the 3 best quarterbacks, I would say, that are out there.
Depending on what you think of Nico at
I
Tennessee.
know. I know people are going to talk about Sellers and
Sellers
Lagway, but those guys are still young. Nuss is old enough to where I think you put him into that Aller and Quinn Ewers group of guys who are draft eligible quarterbacks that are going to be really, really good.
Yeah.
But I'll go punter. You backup quarterback. That's probably actually the good answer. And he said an early line for the Clemson game based off what we know now. Mine would be Clemson -3. Even throw a little over under 68 in there. I'll take the under. I don't think Clemson
that
scores
seems
very many
high.
points. So Clemson laying 3 at home. So that's about a pick 'em.
I mean,
My hot take? I think LSU's a lot better than Clemson.
Yeah, I don't think they're better than Clemson.
Oh, okay. We'll be on opposite sides of this one.
Yeah,
I
I
do not
can't.
think Clemson. I'm not on board with Klubnik. I'm not. I don't think they're that great of a team. I think that if LSU was playing in the ACC, they'd have a better record than Clemson did.
Maybe, but they have a lot. They have a lot of returning talent here. And it's in Clemson. Like I'd set the line somewhere at 5. Clemson -5. Now the over under we agree. I think
I'll take that all day. Give me the
is,
points.
Yeah, 68. But then also 68 is too high. Good gosh, I don't even know.
Give me the
Like
money line too.
North Texas games were not even set at 68 this year for the most part.
Well, that was stupid. They all ended at 100. So.
I know. I would set the total at, I don't know, 61, maybe 62, 60 and a half.
And teams typically come out in week one a little bit more reserved too, of like,
Yeah,
hey, let's figure ourselves out without giving the game away in the process. But
yeah.
give me, I don't care. If you're laying points, give me LSU
I'll
money
give you.
line.
Yeah, I'm at Clemson -5.
Nah,
Zero
I don't
yeah,
even need the points. Give me money line.
money
I think
line.
LSU's a better team than Clemson. Clemson's going into the portal for the first time ever this year. That tells you what you need to know about
That
them trying
that
to have to
tells you
compete.
that they're all in on this year because they have dudes that are ready to play.
Okay, we'll
I
see. I
no,
think LSU's got plenty of dudes.
we got 8 months. We got 8 months.
We got 8 months to argue that one. Two more. John Fontenot said, "What's the ceiling in 2025 if you don't pull a high level safety from the portal? Still a playoff team, or is it too weak? Like too much glaring of a weakness? So if you do not land a safety at all, your starters would probably be Jordan Gilbert and Toviano, backed up by Spears, Rogers, and I
Mm,
guess Mansour Delaney could play
yeah,
back
you
there.
can move Delaney over.
You'd have to be moving people.
Uh, I mean, it's a pretty big. It's a question mark. Like, could it work out? Yes, but like, it is a pretty significant question mark. I'm not ready to
Yes.
say like it's for sure can't work. This that like it's January 9th right now. So I'm not ready to say anything definitive, especially with the
No.
complete overhaul defensively that they've done. Um, but it's a massive question mark. I think that's fair to say.
And then I agree completely. And for me, it has shifted from corner to safety. But as John pointed out, if you don't get a safety at all, my worry becomes that your solution is plucking into that corner room again. And then that
Mhm.
corner room doesn't become as strong. Now you've got two issues. So
Yeah,
Tamarcus Cooley, whomever it is, they need at least one safety.
yeah.
Speaking of one question left. Shotgun Gibbs. Any word on the young pass rushers like Klosh Cobbins and CJ Jackson? I have not asked around much about those guys just because it was kind of an afterthought knowing they weren't going to play a lot. But I will say, was it Klosh Cobbins at the end of the game or on special teams that had like caught up to him on the kick return and was like high fiving him? Or was it
I
Cobbins at
know.
the end of the game who made that pass breakup
I know what you're
when Baylor
talking
was
about.
trying to score?
I know what you're talking about. I don't was he the one high fiving him? I don't remember exactly. I remember the play, but I don't remember
Okay.
the number.
Young guys who are playing edge. I
Like
mean, edge right now, D end edge, but
both of
edge.
them, both of them out of high school needed to fill out a bit. So it really wasn't any surprise. I saw them in fall camp this year, and running with like the threes and the scout and stuff, and trying to figure it out. Like it's a process. I don't think there's like pressure on them this year. I think there's pressure to develop, and you kind of go from there. You hope that in 2026 they're able to come along and be players for you.
100%. Billy loved Kalash Cobbins coming out. So, and
He's a
CJ
fun player.
Jackson, they've had a lot of good players come out of Georgia, and he did not hit the portal. So neither of these guys did. So
Yeah,
that's good to see. If you don't play a lot, you knew you were taking a red shirt, you're not immediately jumping elsewhere for more playing time, and that allows you to build depth that you can develop over time.
yeah,
All right, Matty B, there were no promises made to stay under an hour at the mailbag because this was our first one in the new year, but some good questions that I think give a good feel for kind of where they're at. You got me
yeah.
hyped there.
We did it. I'm
I
ready.
don't, I'm LSU money line.
Let's suit it.
Don't listen to Matty B and his Clemson affinity for their starting lineup of whomever they have.
Don't
Nah,
listen to him.
they're a good
I'm over
team.
here wearing purple and
They're a
just
good team.
picking Clemson here. Crazy. But yeah, thank
Anything
you all.
else?
No,
Yeah.
that's it. We're done. We're 15 in.
Me
Answered
and
all the
Matty B don't
questions.
get along anymore. We're disagreeing
Thank
about
you
everything.
to everybody who sent in questions. We'll do this again. We'll try to do one either every week or every other week over the off season. We'll have another portal pod soon.
Yes.
Once we
We'll
get
do
some
another portal
clarity.
podcast soon.
Yeah, once we get some clarity on the remaining targets.
Oh, before we
Um,
get out of here, Matty B, because we probably won't. No, we won't have another podcast, or maybe tomorrow if we do, but both it'll be dated. Pick these games, semis. Who's going to the Natty?
ooh,
So it's Notre Dame, whose backups and special teamers are fighting the flu, evidently. Um,
that's big.
but anyways, Notre Dame tonight
I'm going Penn
against
State for the first
Penn
one.
State.
I think they have enough. Um,
That game's about at a pick 'em almost.
yeah, it's at a pick 'em. I'm gonna take. if they can slow down Leonard's legs, I think that'd be huge. I think that's going to be a point of emphasis. And then I think Aller is a playmaker, and they just got dudes on Penn State. I think the top end of their roster is just like better than Notre Dame's. And
Ohio
then
State is laying 6 versus a Texas team that did quite well in their first year in the SEC.
yeah, um,
I think losing to Michigan in the fashion that trying to match Michigan's crappy play style of all they could do of run the football and losing in bad fashion to the worst Michigan team in a while was the worst news that could have happened to everybody else in the
yeah,
playoffs because Ohio State has now realized, guess what? We'll just throw it to our receivers, open it up, and then give it to Travion Henderson whenever they don't have this box stacked.
yeah, just throwing to Jeremiah Smith.
Laying 6 is a lot. I could see Ohio State winning this one by double digits. And
Yeah,
I like Texas all year long. I really thought Texas might be the team that wins it all.
that game from Ohio State against Oregon was eye-opening, to say the least. Like, that is an absurd win. And they're locked in right now, so I can't pick against them, even though I 6 is a lot. 6 is a lot, but I would pick Ohio State, yeah.
So we're going Penn State, Ohio State national championship. The ratings would love an Ohio State, Notre Dame national championship, but Penn State, Ohio State. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not
And
counting out Texas. That side of the bracket is the bad, like that Notre Dame, Penn State group that had to go through Boise and Indiana in those teams. Like they got the
Georgia with
lucky
its
end of
backup
this.
quarterback and so on.
Yeah.
So,
All right. There's our picks. We're both rolling Penn State, and we are both rolling. You know what?
are you taking Texas?
No, I'm taking Notre Dame.
No. Oh,
I
okay,
think
you're taking Notre
I
Dame.
think Riley Leonard gets it done in this one enough. They play great defense and they run the football. They protect it. If they can do another one of those, we're punting it, and then we can run all 11 guys off the field and get all 11 offense on without you calling timeout and without us getting a false start. Moves, oh yeah, cook that up for me.
Yeah.
So I'll go Notre Dame, and I will go Ohio State.
Yeah. James Franklin was over there asking Marcus Freeman how old he is and complimenting his hairline and everything. I was like, okay, all right, Franklin, let's see it.
Let's rock it.
Let's see it.
Well, we've got football. 3 games left. 2 semis and a natty.
3
Maybe
games
this
left.
time next year we're doing the reporting on LSU being in these games. Matty B, it's not far fetched.
Hopefully. Yes, women's basketball tonight as well. 5:30, Tennessee. It's not on TV though because of all the football coverage, obviously. So it'll be on ESPN Plus. But the huge game, LSU Tennessee. Excited for that. And yeah, that's it. That's all we got for y'all today. Hope y'all enjoyed it. Leave us a like, comment, share, subscribe if you haven't already. Subscribe to the Bengal Tiger if you have not already. We appreciate everybody who joins us over there and sends in questions. Leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you are listening on Apple, Spotify. And we will talk to y'all later.